Outreach and messaging to build and expand partnerships. Hello, and welcome to the presentation, Outreach and Messaging to Build and Expand Partnerships. My name is Rachel Romeo, and I work on Rehabilitation Services Administration's National Clearinghouse of Rehabilitation Training Materials, or NCRTM project. I'm joined today by Kate Danello, Principal Research Associate who works on the Disability Innovation Fund, or DIF, Technical Assistance Program. We are so glad you chose to join us for this session. We all know partnerships are critical in grant work. That said, crafting effective messages and outreach strategies can sometimes seem intimidating, but they don't have to be. Between our combined professional experiences with both private and public sector clients, this session will help you learn how to best tell your unique story and engage with partners to have mutually beneficial impact. Slide 2, Learning Objectives. First, let's overview the session's objectives. By the end of this session, you should be able to 1. Understand the basic elements of an outreach strategy. 2. Define your value proposition for potential partners. This may be the most important part of this session. Knowing your organization's core purpose and main reasons why partners would be compelled to work with you is essential to outreach. 3. Tailor your messaging and communications to different audiences. 4. And lastly, strategize your approach to securing and expanding partnerships. Slide 3. Why does messaging matter? Before we get into the weeds of outreach strategy, we need to reflect on messaging and why it really does matter. Good messaging can make a partnership, but poor messaging can prevent a partnership from forming. Here's a practical example. In this line of work, jargon is so common, alphabet soup as they say. But there may be entities curious about disability employment that don't understand the phrases competitive integrated employment, assistive technologies, or wraparound services and supports. You as a grantee know that you are willing to support both the employer and the individual with disabilities for a successful outcome. We're to meet the employer where they are at. Think of it this way. Employers think in return on investment. How will you help them achieve a specific goal with your partnership? How can you explain the disability employment process in a way that's easy to understand? Secondly, whether you are looking for partners in your own community or on a national level, we need to tailor that communication. The messaging for a potential partnership with a community center in your area should look a lot different than the messaging you'd send a Fortune 500 company. And reminder, this is not the field of dreams. Just because you build something like a program or project does not guarantee that partners will show up. It's up to you to find good partners through effective outreach and messaging. Slide 4. What elements are part of a successful outreach strategy? Okay, now let's get into the elements of a successful outreach strategy. We're going to talk about these at a high level right now, but we'll go into much more detail in the coming slides. First up, who? In setting up an outreach strategy, you need to know exactly who you are talking to, your audience, and note that this does not have to be a singular audience type. You could have a list of several audiences you want to go after. It helps to group them by similar characteristics. For example, referral organizations, schools, private sector businesses, advocacy organizations, and so on. Next, why? This is your value proposition and arguably the number one thing we want you to focus on when starting your outreach and messaging strategy. You have to know who you are or your organization to be able to pitch partnership to another entity. How? These are the mix of tactics, messaging, and strategies you'll employ to get your tailored communications out. And lastly, when? Every strategy needs a timeline. In the coming slides, we'll give some timeline basics and when to adjust tactics if needed. Passing over to you, Kate.
Thanks, Rachel. This is Kate Danello, a member of the TA team for the Disability Innovation Fund. Now that you know me, let's get to know you. Slide 5, know thyself. Before we can effectively reach others, we need to start with a clear understanding of ourselves. This means taking a step back and asking, what makes your program truly unique? Think about your strengths. What do you do exceptionally well? Maybe it's your approach, your community partnerships, or the way that you empower participants. Then consider what sets your project apart from similar organizations in your space. These are the building blocks of a powerful and personal message. To help get you started, we have included a worksheet titled Outreach and Messaging Self-Reflection Exercise for use in today's brainstorming exercise. Check out the YouTube description box to access this worksheet. On the next slide, we're going to work through this worksheet together. Here's a tip. Bring these prompts to your next meeting. It's a great way to gather different perspectives and refine your message together. The more your team is aligned on what sets you apart, the stronger and more consistent your outreach will be. Slide 6. Know thyself continued. This next slide provides a reflective exercise designed to help you think about your project's strengths from a few different angles. Grab a pen or type directly into that outreach and messaging self-reflection exercise worksheet that's provided in the YouTube description. We'll talk through each of these questions over the next few minutes to give you time to reflect. If you need additional time, feel free to pause your recording as needed. Ready to begin? All right. Let's start with program design. Ask yourself, why did you launch this program in the first place? What was the need or gap you were trying to fill? And what makes your approach different? I'm going to pause for a few seconds. Again, if you need more time, feel free to press your pause button. All right. Next, let's think about employer needs. Who is using your services now and who isn't, but could be? What specific challenges are you helping employers to solve? Take a few seconds and jot down your notes in the fields provided. Let's shift to participant needs. Again, who are you serving today? Who else could benefit from your services in the future? And most importantly, how does your project help participants grow, thrive, and share their talents? Take a few seconds to jot down your thoughts now. Finally, reflect on your organizational mission. What sets your organization apart from others? What are your biggest strengths as a team or institution? Jot down your notes now. These questions aren't just for you to answer alone. They're great prompts to bring back to your team. Use them to spark discussion, uncover insights, and build a message that's rooted in what makes your work meaningful. Back to you, Rachel, for the who.
Slide 7, who? Understanding your audience. Okay, now that we've taken the time to reflect on our project's purpose, core values, and mission, let's dive into our audience, what defines them, and what they might need from a potential partnership. Slide 8, defining your audience. When crafting your messaging of any sort of outreach strategy, your audience must be defined. For the purpose of initiating partnerships involving competitive integrated employment, we're looking at two audiences, employers and participants. Employers are definitely a primary focus for this work, as in what businesses have growing recruitment needs and would benefit from partnering with you to employ people with disabilities. What businesses can hire and train individuals in your project? That said, participants are your secondary focus. And by participants, we mean both actual participants and referral organizations that refer individuals to your project. You need to make sure your audience is defined so that you can appeal to each of these groups with your messaging. Slide 9, defining your audience continued. For this slide, I want you to reflect on your own specific project. Whether your project is new or you're well into your grant period, let's go through these questions. Who are you working with currently? Are there some solid partners that you've already seen success with or want to nurture those relationships a little bit further? Or are there current partners that are not a good fit and not giving your participants the quality employment opportunities you know they deserve? I'll give you a moment to write down those partners. If you need a few more minutes, press the pause button. Okay, secondly, who do you want to reach in the future? Any dream partnerships come to mind? Take a moment to write down a few options. Now, look at what you've written down. Do you see any way you could categorize those partners? Small versus large employers, local versus nationwide employers, employers who are in similar industries, and so on. The largest category, so to speak, should be the focus of your communication and outreach activities. For secondary audiences, you'll be able to adjust your main messaging to capture their attention. Slide 10, your audience's needs. Our next step is having a better understanding of your audience's needs. For employer partners, this falls into three main types. 1, employers who've worked with people with disabilities before. 2, employers who are new to working with people with disabilities. And 3, employers whose needs vary by sector or industry. Over the next few slides, we'll briefly overview each type. However, keep in mind, there is one overarching benefit driving partnerships between employers and projects like yours. Slide 11, overarching benefit. Disability employment projects create a pipeline of qualified workers trained to meet employers' specific needs with the supports to ensure success and longevity. This benefit should not be overlooked and really should be part of any messaging and outreach you do. Developing a mutually beneficial relationship to know what the employer needs, what skills they seek, and how to make the recruiting and training process more efficient is truly a win-win for both parties. Slide 12, employers who've worked with people with disabilities before. First up, employers who've worked with people with disabilities before. This group generally understands the process, and if they're interested in partnering, they realize what a benefit it is to them. So your outreach and messaging should focus on making their staffing processes even more efficient. They value training tailored to their business, increased retention for those they do hire, and having a partner who follows through with dependable workers. Slide 13, employers who are new to working with people with disabilities. For employers that are new to working with people with disabilities, you need to meet them where they are at. Your outreach and messaging needs to be both relational, as in establishing trust, and informative, because they are unfamiliar with employing people with disabilities. Some information they may value includes insights into the counseling approach and support that a staff member with disabilities might receive, what onboarding assistance looks like, negotiating accommodations, and advice on tax benefits. For example, you may want to offer a training for managers and staff about onboarding people with disabilities or offer them on-the-job support for onboarding. Again, establishing trust is going to be very important for this audience to consider a partnership. Slide 14, employers whose needs vary by sector and industry. Lastly, we live in an evolving business environment. The reality is that markets change and employers adapt both their businesses and hiring practices in response. This is where you can be a matchmaker, so to speak. For industries in which you know your participants can thrive and excel, you need to pay attention to market trends. Show how you can be a problem solver for an employer by providing qualified workers with specialized skills needed in their industry. Better yet, you can highlight how you've solved staffing issues for some of their peers with case study or success story type messaging. More on case studies to come later. One example I want to point out is from the California Department of Rehabilitation, or DOR. For their Vocational Rehabilitation Employment Division, they have a dedicated counselor team that works directly with specific industries to best understand how they hire, recruit, and retain people. They shifted away from geographic-based caseloads and now focus instead on industry-based expertise to better prepare their participants for real-world hiring expectations. The result is solid, trusted partnerships that ensure stronger employment pathways for people with disabilities. The RTAC-QM's Manager Minute podcast has an entire episode overviewing this project with more detailed insights. A link to the podcast is on the resources slide at the end of the presentation. Slide 15, Participant Values. As we wrap up the audience section, I want to briefly review a few participant types and their values. Remember, this is your secondary audience, but as you're creating a main outreach and messaging strategy for employers, it's important to remember who you are recruiting as participants and their values related to an employment partnership. You've got participants with work experience and or clear career goals. These individuals need to see your track record of success. Who are your partners and how have they helped other participants? This is another way in which case studies will be a benefit in your messaging. Secondly, we've got first-time job seekers. You need to stress what training and support such as transportation and benefits counseling are available and what they can expect out of the process from securing a job to their continued growth. Back to you, Kate.
Thanks, Rachel. Slide 16. Why? Defining your value proposition. Now that you've taken time to reflect on what makes your project and organization unique and the needs of your audience, let's bring it all together. How to pitch your project. Slide 17. This is where your value proposition comes in. Think of it as the bridge between what you offer and what your audience, whether that's employers or participants, truly cares about. Your value proposition explains why they should work with you, communicating the value that you bring to the table in a way that speaks to their needs, their goals, and their challenges. When crafting your why, you want to play to your strengths, speak to your audience's needs, and then personalize it upon delivery. In the next few slides, we're going to get into how to craft your message, first starting with an employer and then with a participant. Slide 18, value proposition for employers. Now let's talk about how to actually frame your value proposition, especially when you're speaking with employers. On the left side of this slide, we've included a few key prompts to guide your thinking and help you to craft your value proposition. Again, these are the kinds of questions that employers are asking themselves, even if they're not saying them out loud. How well do you understand their industry? What makes your program unique? What challenges does your program help the employer to overcome? How will you assist them with recruitment and training? And how will you support their new employees after placement? Thinking about these questions can help you to shape a message that's not just about what you can do, but why it matters to them. On the next slide, we've created a sample script from a fictional project we're going to call New Path. It's just a little inspiration of how a value proposition could look. I'm going to read through this sample. Yours is sure to be much better than mine. All right. Here's a sample. New Path specializes in developing custom training programs for employers in our area or industry to employ people with disabilities and build a more inclusive workforce. We've been working in your industry for 5+ years and have partnerships with a few other employers in the area. You could name a few here as well. Unlike other staffing agencies that you may work with, we provide staff hired from our programs with customized training and ongoing mentorship that helps them succeed. We can also tailor our training program to fill the jobs that you need filled. Have you been struggling with turnover? Did you know that X% of people that we've helped to find jobs over the past few years have stayed with their employer in their original role or in other positions within the company? Framing your value proposition in this way, customizing it, of course, for your industry or your statistics that you've been able to find, will help you speak to the employer's needs. Next slide, value proposition for participants. Just like with employers, it's important to tailor your message so that it resonates with participants and their families. That means, again, speaking to their goals, their concerns, and their hopes for the future. Here again on the left side, we've included a few guiding questions for you to keep in mind to help tailor your message so that it resonates with participants and their families. You might want to speak to how well your program aligns with their personal goals. What makes your project different from others they might be considering? What barriers can you help them to overcome? How will you support them? How will you assist them with training and ongoing mentorship and counseling? And how will you support them after placement to help them achieve their long-term career goals? On the next slide, we've taken our standard value proposition and we've customized it again to really speak to the needs of participants. Here again is our sample NewPath program. I'm going to read through this description. I'm going to use X's in a few places just to give you a sense of where you might want to customize those pieces to reflect your industry or your statistics that you might have. Okay, here's the proposition tailored to a participant. NewPath provides hands-on job training that helps people build meaningful careers in their industry, no matter their level of experience or ability. Have you wanted to try a career in X industry? We've helped X number of youth like you find jobs that pay a living wage. In fact, X% of our participants have stepped into roles that paid above a minimum wage. Our job training is what sets us apart. We go beyond basic career counseling and offer hand-on training and job shadowing opportunities. And because we've been around for more than X years, we have many connections in the area. If your first job isn't what you want to do long-term, we'll keep working with you to find you something that you love. Again, that's just an example. Here, we're speaking to what matters to the individual, how our project helps them to start and build a rewarding career. It highlights real outcomes like job placements and wages, and emphasizes our project's commitment to ongoing support. The key takeaway here as you craft your value proposition is that your message should help participants see themselves in the story that you're telling. It should make them feel confident that your project is a place where they'll be supported, valued, and set up for success. Rachel, back to you.
Thanks, Kate. Slide 22. How? Developing tactics and content. Now let's get into the how, or the tactics and content you'll employ to secure partnerships. Slide 23. Outreach tactics. Meet people where they are at. When strategizing outreach tactics, I cannot stress this enough. You have to meet people where they are already at. This looks a little different for everyone in different sectors, but here are some general guidelines. Employers and referral organizations can often be reached through webinars, listservs or emails, and conferences or events. Engaged employers are reachable. You just have to get your message in front of them. This could look like attending one of their webinars and following up with the speaker via email. As another example, you may want to reach out to your local economic development, chamber of commerce, or business groups who can help identify who is growing, who has challenges, and how they can help. Be sure to also leverage your current employer partners, vendors, and contacts. They may be able to connect you through events such as meet and greets, provide you with referrals, and make introductions. For participant recruitment, job fairs, emails, social media, and other communication vehicles such as a university listserv can be helpful methods for getting in touch. Peer groups for people with disabilities and their families are another viable way to share opportunities for employment and training. Note that you should select a mix of tactics. A single tactic is not going to go very far in outreach. Select a few and prepare to review their performance at intervals, which we'll get into later. And lastly, your selected tactics will drive what content you develop. Slide 24, employer content options. Over the next two slides, we're going to review a few content options for employers and participants. Remember that this is not an exhaustive list. You can get creative, but these are some tried and true options. On this slide, we have employer content options. First, case studies. Highlighting businesses that already partner with you establishes credibility and legitimizes your efforts. Written format is great. Video is even better. An easy way to develop these is the challenge solution result model. Think of a challenge, show how you were the solution, and detail the results. Be sure to include quotes from satisfied employers as impactful business-to-business messaging. These do not need to be long, a single page or 3 minutes tops for video. They're incredibly effective and can be used in multiple outreach tactics. Moving along to business case. There are some employers who really need to understand the return on investment of any partnership. This can be a presentation or short brief, something that's easily emailed and shared to show the benefits of your project for employers. The more data you can include to show your positive results, the better. Website content. You may make an in-person or digital connection, think LinkedIn, with a potential partner. While they may have listened to your insights and summary on your project, they are going to want to do some digging themselves. Be sure to have a dedicated for partners or for employers section of your website. This can help answer any FAQs and explain processes to those new to disability employment. A great example is displayed on slide 25. Melwood, a family of companies supporting people with disabilities and a DIF grantee, makes it easy for employers to get in touch. Their contact form has a Let's Do Business drop-down section. Clear and to the point. And finally, smile and dial or cold calling. Yes, this really does still exist. Obviously, use this with discretion, but sometimes you have to put yourself out there to get the results you want. And for some businesses, they respond better on the phone than via email, a webinar, a newsletter article, etc. Have an intro script ready to go that's concise and to the point. From there, you can point them to additional references on your website or schedule a follow-up meeting. Slide 26, participant content options. And now, participant content options. I do want to note that this content can also benefit employers. This can give potential businesses a look into the project from a participant's perspective and see the positive outcomes that come out of a partnership. First up, FAQ sheets. Whether a participant has work experience or is a first-time hire, potential participants and their families need to know the facts and process behind your project. This should be an easy to share and read deliverable. As an important note, it is helpful to include information in your FAQs about benefits planning and work incentives. This is a common question from participants and their families. Understandably, they want to know how employment might affect things like Social Security or healthcare benefits. You don't need to be a benefits expert yourself, but you can reassure participants that support is available. A simple statement in your outreach materials, such as, "We're not benefits planners, but we can connect you with trusted experts who can walk you through your specific situation," can go a long way in easing concerns and keeping the conversation moving forward. Case studies, yet again. These are such an effective tool. This time you can use the challenge solution result model, but align it with how you helped a participant achieve their career goals. And make sure you have several participant case studies in your lineup. Highlight different disabilities, different forms of work experience, education, and so on. Social media content and campaigns. The use of social media and which platforms you use to reach your audience can vary widely, but generally, developing social content centered around the project and participant experience can help get potential recruits to a next step action, which could be an intake form, email, website visit, so on. Your case studies, articles, and FAQs can all be repurposed here. Slide 27, evaluating content and tactics. Next, it's time to talk evaluation. This really does not need to be stressful or overwhelming. After you have your selected tactics and associated content employed, set a regular time for evaluation. For every project, the time may be different, but quarterly is a good rule of thumb. You should be using both qualitative and quantitative data for this analysis. Here's a couple examples. If you used a digital platform such as YouTube to host a case study, you can view those metrics to determine success. If you accrued many employer partners after presenting a webinar, You can infer the effectiveness of that tactic. On intake forms and during initial conversations, you can ask for feedback. How did you hear about us, or what made you want to join our project? From there, you can adapt and refine your outreach strategy. Slide 28, testing and refining your strategy. To test and refine your content, there's a couple actions you can take. Pressure testing your content with input from others on your team. You can do this prior to launching content or after to see how it's performing. Assemble a medium-sized group, maybe 5 to 10 people, for a collaborative evaluation of your messaging and associated tactics. Gather their thoughts and pivot if needed. Engage with participants and referral organizations. Ask questions casually or gather insights through surveys or focus groups. And third, engage with employers. Ask questions to learn about their needs and challenges. Seek feedback after early content placements. This requires you to pay attention. Webinar Q&As, topics at a conference, local news can all bring about employer needs or trends that you may have a unique solution for. Now, anytime you're doing outreach, you're going to have partners that are very interested and some that are curious but hesitant to commit. For partners that you're particularly interested in obtaining, try the following actions. Active listening. Beyond what we've already discussed, try to put yourself in the employer's shoes. Have a solid idea of what's going on in their market, their unique challenges, and see what content or tactics of yours resonated with their peers. Refine your messaging and business case accordingly. Secondly, take a stronger relational approach. This is where a one-to-one phone call or meeting might be most helpful. Investing in the relationship can establish trust, and they can ask questions about your project and benefits in detail. Finally, know when to walk away. If you've invested more than a handful of efforts to develop a partnership with a business that won't budge, make the call to move on. You certainly don't want to burn any bridges, and there's bound to be another employer partner that would be a good fit for your participants. And hey, they could just need to see another business partner with you first before deciding it's a good fit for them. Passing it back to you, Kate.
Thanks, Rachel. Slide 29, when setting a timeline. Slide 30, when establishing a timeline. When it comes to outreach, having a clear process makes all the difference. This slide breaks it down into 3 simple steps to help you stay focused and strategic. On the resources slide at the end of this presentation, you'll also find a template for planning your outreach strategy created by Enroll America. First, make a plan. Start by identifying your goals and needs. What are you trying to accomplish with your outreach plan? Who are you trying to reach and why? Next, map out the calendar. Begin with your fixed dates, things like conferences and planned starts of training cohorts, awareness months, or major community events. These give you natural touch points to build around. Next, assess and address gaps. Once you've mapped the big moments, take a step back and look at what's missing and how you can sprinkle in some additional tactics. Are there stretches of time when you're not engaging your main audience? Are there key messages that you haven't covered yet? What tactics do you want to prioritize now to make future work easier? For example, if I have a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce in a few weeks, I might prioritize case studies and a business case right now so that I have materials to pass out. Finally, move forward. Now that you've built your roadmap, it's time to move. First, think about who can help. Delegate tasks across your teams so that no one's carrying the whole load. Set clear and actionable goals, like pitching to 5 new employers per month. Finally, if you're feeling overwhelmed looking at the entire calendar, look for quick wins or small things that you can do right away to build momentum. Remember, steady progress, even if it's slower than you'd like, is still progress. Just keep swimming. Next, we're going to transition to our case study with Employ 210. Slide 31, case study from Employ 210 project. We're excited to be joined by John Davis, an associate professor at the University of Texas at San Antonio and the project director of Employ 210, a DIF grant. Thanks for joining us today, John. We really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to share how UT San Antonio has been approaching outreach for the Employ 210 project. Would you mind taking a moment to introduce yourself before we dive into questions?
Sure, happy to be here. I'm John Davis. I'm an associate professor at UT San Antonio. I'm also the principal investigator of Employ 210.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us, John. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your project? What makes your organization and Employ 210 unique?
Yeah, happy to. The Employ 210 program at the University of Texas at San Antonio offers an innovative approach to improving employment outcomes for neurodivergent adolescents and adults. Our program stands out because it reimagines traditional vocational training by focusing on employer-employee alignment from the start. To craft the job description and training program, we shadow employers' high-performing team members to learn exactly what's required in the position. This method helps to prioritize both parties' expectations to promote job placement and retention.
I see. That job shadowing part is really unique. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the employers who you're working with currently?
Yeah, we're really excited with our employment partners. We try and tailor our requests to our partners' needs. Interestingly, we find many of our partners have a vision of participating on both sides of recruitment. Right now, we're working with a mix of area businesses and nonprofits. To name a few, we have worked with a local accessibility-focused theme park named Morgan's Wonderland and their work inclusion network, The Win, as an employer and a referral source for participants. We're also working with San Antonio and Northeast independent school districts as recruitment for participants and potential employers. We've also worked with Toyotetsu, which is a large automotive part manufacturing employer here in the area. We've also worked with the Handlyman, which is a regional handyman business focusing on hiring neurodivergent individuals in construction trades.
Got it. You mentioned that you tailor your program to your employer's needs. Can you walk us through how you created your message or value proposition and what steps you took?
Sure, we're continually going out to engage with the community, and it's self-reinforcing and allows us to get a better sense of what we need to communicate to potential partners on our concise consumable materials. With our model of shadowing a current exemplary employee, we're trying to understand employers' expectations and unique needs as deeply as possible, then fulfilling that staffing need. This process has been years in the making. In our value proposition, we emphasize the following parts. One, access to a skilled, job-ready talent pool. Employers gain early access to a pipeline of trained and qualified candidates whose skills have been aligned with the employer's needs through a process of job shadowing, task analysis, and behavior skills training. This reduces onboarding and training time. We also have a customized evidence-based training. We then train participants with behavior analytic techniques and generative AI enhanced simulations, ensuring skill generalization and job readiness. We also have no-cost recruitment and onboarding support. So we provide comprehensive no-cost support services, including applicant screening, job coaching, and follow-up for both the employer and the employee.
Got it. Thanks for highlighting all of that, John. It sounds like you're using different communication tactics. And as you were talking through your value proposition, you mentioned some different strategies and content that you're using to engage employers. What's seeming to work the best for you so far? I think we also have some examples of some very spiffy posts that you have on social media here on slide 32.
Thank you. Yeah, the Employ 210 team develops content strategically to support employer and participant recruitment by tailoring communication to the specific needs and priorities of each target audience. These materials and tactics include customized outreach materials. The team has developed accessible flyers, brochures, and digital content that clearly outline the benefit of program participation using inclusive language design. Employer-facing materials for business partners. Materials emphasize our value proposition. These are shared in meetings, at industry events, and through our partners at the WIN and local chambers of commerce. Participant recruitment tools. For prospective participants, we use engaging visuals and success stories to showcase employment pathways, training supports, and real-life job outcomes and success stories. These materials are shared through schools, community organizations, and on our social media platform managed by our project communications team. Last, we have our project website and social media. Through this centralized project website and managed social media presence, it provides up-to-date information, testimonials, and resources that facilitate ongoing outreach and engagement with potential recruits. We've also noticed that posts with pictures of people get more interaction than carefully crafted scripts. All this is to say, we've also found leveraging existing relationships is a great tactic to get our foot in the door. Our nonprofit partners have existing connections that we have been able to access. For example, we recently began working with Morgan's Multi-Assistance Center, the MAC, a Texas-based organization that helps connect people with disabilities and their families to services. They helped introduce Employee 210, the Employee 210 project to several area employers, companies we tried to connect with through our university community engagement and business office previously, but had not had much success with until Morgan's MAC gave us the introduction. They know who to go to personally within the company, someone who is making hiring decisions.
Got it. I appreciate that nuance that the relationship really helped you to make the connection and that Morgan Mac really facilitated that warm handoff. As you were as you were being introduced to new employers, how were you able to tailor your messaging to best reach your audiences?
Yes, so we've created it over time as staff identified needs and we heard what employers wanted. For example, a lot of area schools and partners wanted brochures and flyers they could pass out. We created them and included a QR code to help people express their interest. We're also fortunate to be a part of a university system and have talented students who are able to help us. I also decided to hire a communications director who's been fantastic for designing messaging to connect on social media outlets. We are present on Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. It's helpful to have someone who understands those algorithms and how to boost people's feeds using just these free services.
I bet. Thanks for sharing, John. Before we close, last question for you. What advice would you give to others who are at the beginning stages of crafting their outreach and messaging strategy?
So start with the target audience needs, not explaining your program. By creating a relationship with potential partners at the beginning helps them to understand that the service is a support rather than an obligation. Explore multiple modalities to disseminate your message. We are very active on social media in addition to our direct contact approaches. And let your program goals guide your investment in partners. For our program, we have had many businesses interested in participating without any foreseeable jobs. These are not partners we can actively invest in. Instead, we focus on employers who have current job openings and immediate needs. While we work with a mix of employers, small employers, area nonprofits, and larger companies with multiple chains or factories, such as the grocery store H-E-B and Toyotetsu, the investment we need to make is the same. It takes the same amount of energy for us to develop a training program for an employer with 1 hire as an employer with 20 hires. Having a mix of employers and really prioritizing those high volume employers has helped us grow.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, John. And I really appreciate that last note that you made about how important it is as you think about your partnership is to think on about the return on investment for your own team and the amount of energy it can take to really cultivate those relationships and focusing where you can get the best return. That concludes the end of our Q&A session for this portion of the recording. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule today, John, to join us and share some of the wonderful outreach and engagement strategies that Employ 210 is using to expand and build your DIF grant. Slide 33, key takeaways. Let's recap the key takeaways before we close our session today. Effective outreach and messaging starts with having a clear, compelling message that highlights your strengths, what makes your approach unique, and above all, speaks to your audience's needs. Then craft your language using plain, clear language. The tone and messaging you use with employers may be different than how you also talk with participants and their families. Next, select a mix of tactics that meet people where they are. Consider how your audience prefers to engage, whether that's online, in person, or through community networks, and make sure that your tactics align with your planned content and outreach goals. As you implement your strategy, take time to assess your progress. What's working well? Where are there gaps? Use those insights to refine your approach as you go. Build momentum. Save what works, reuse the strong content, and keep building. Remember, small steps and steady progress can lead to a big and lasting change. And finally, take time for reflection. Do this at the outset to set your direction and revisit it as you continue to build partnerships. Make space to gather input from your team and your audience. Their feedback can help you stay grounded, responsive, and inspired. Slide 34, 2 steps by Tuesday. Every small step is a step forward. So let's close with a call to action. What are 2 steps that you can take by Tuesday to develop your messaging or expand your strategy? Write them on your to-do list right now or on a sticky note that you post on your computer. It could be something like setting up a virtual whiteboard for the next team meeting so that we can do the self-reflection exercise together, or maybe emailing your outreach manager and asking them to design a visual calendar so that you two can discuss next week what's on the horizon. 2 small steps. Write them down now, whatever's top of mind. Set plans in motion after today's meeting. Slide 35, resources. We've mentioned several resources throughout this presentation. Those materials and a few others are included on this slide. The guides we selected provide additional tactical information about how you might frame your message in a way that resonates with your audience. If you're pressed for time, start with the Making the Business Case from Ability Path. This 2020 resource provides examples on how you can tailor your message and value proposition to employers and project participants. Slide 36, contact us. Thanks again for joining us today. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the DIFTA team at difta@neweditions.net or the NCRTM team at ncrtm@neweditions.net. We're always here to support you. Thanks again so much for joining Rachel and I today. Slide 37, disclaimer. The contents of this presentation were developed under contract 9199-0037-919024F0377 from the U.S. Department of Education, the Department. The Department does not mandate or prescribe practices, models, or other activities described or discussed in this document. The contents of this presentation may contain examples of, adaptations of, and links to resources created and maintained by another public or private organization. The Department does not control or guarantee the accuracy, relevance, timeliness, or completeness of this outside information. The content of this presentation does not necessarily represent the policy of the Department. This publication is not intended to represent the views or policy or be an endorsement of any views expressed or materials provided by any federal agency. Edgar 75-620.